You're listening to Around Comics. 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 Comics.
You are listening to Around Comics, episode 427, Trade Talks. Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's New X-Men, Volume 1 is the book we're talking about today, gentlemen. I'm Brian Salazar. With me is Christopher Niesman and Thomas Caters. How are you, fellas?
Good. Hey, don't you shortchange Neil Francis Yu and Ethan Van Sciver.
They each got an issue, but quietly
Is why we're reading this.
quite frankly, is the reason I'm
He's he's big part of why we're talking about this book. What is it? 10 years? Tom? Oh, is Tom back? There he is. There's Tom.
Yeah.
Tom, this is your trade talk.
This is our Trade Talk.
There it is.
So
It is.
Is this really almost? Is this 20 years old?
Yeah.
Wow.
Older
Morrison's
20 years old.
X-Men run is 20 years old. I feel terrible now. I'm gonna have to go take a nap.
Why? You feel
old.
old?
Well, you are.
You shouldn't.
You are old.
Old.
Yeah.
You are old. I will say, the book has aged really well.
Better than
Right?
you.
Definitely-
Better.
much better than any of us
Yeah.
in the last 20 years.
Hey, Sal's in the best shape of his
Yeah,
life.
sounds great. Yeah, that was self-deprecating.
I'm probably literally better in every way than I was 20
than
years
you were
ago.
20 years ago.
I mean, now give me another 5 years. It's all
Okay.
downhill.
It's diminishing
You are
returns
the new
from here on out.
X-Men. You are the new X-Men of it's just better with age. It's aged like
Yeah.
a fine wine.
Yeah, he's if there's going to be someone who's going to wear like black leather, it's Sal.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
The rest of my life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Tom and I are
it's
more the
true.
spandex crowd.
Yeah.
So what year did this come out?
2001.
Holy
Yeah.
shit.
This is issue
Yeah.
116, and it has they used to put the dates down there. I kind of like the trade dress on this.
Why
But
do you have that all?
2001. This issue cost $2.25.
Yeah. I think it started like May 2001. I looked up because I was like, what year did this come out? I was like,
Something like that.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm trying to think. Quitely had worked on the Authority with Miller before this, right?
Sure.
Yeah, maybe.
fucking
I don't
know.
know.
Yeah.
Let's
Maybe
see.
not.
Let's look up Frank Quitely.
I'm just
He
kinda
left
like
the Authority.
setting-
Yes, he left the Authority to draw this book.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he had kind of turned into kind of an it guy. And I'm not first. Is this the first time that he and Morrison teamed up? It kind of feels like it.
No, he did
Nope.
Flex Mentallo,
Oh, that's oh gosh, yeah, the Doom Patrol stuff.
and I think
Yeah.
he had worked with him in Britain on some stuff before that as well.
Okay.
So
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Flex Mentallo.
Yeah. So Tom,
Yeah,
why
I
did you
mean-
pick this book?
I hadn't read it in a little while, and I saw it on the shelf, and go for a summer blockbuster in these summer months. Like a big
Fun.
crowd pleaser,
Yeah.
fun crowd pleaser book that I know I enjoy. I haven't read in a while, and I was happy I picked it. I'm gonna keep reading it like Transmetropolitan. I'll be like, oh yeah, that's right. I really like this.
It's really
I haven't
good.
read this.
Yeah.
That's right, I forgot.
It's
forgot
good,
how
it's
good this
but
was.
at the same time, it's kind of disturbing how prescient it is 20 years later.
Oh yeah. I mean, even as you get farther than the first trade, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh god, like,
Yeah,
oh
still
no,
dealing with the same
like,
shit 20 years
yeah,
later.
like,
Even worse, though.
Racism
Yeah.
is immortal.
Right?
exactly, yeah. And like, but yeah, I was telling you guys right before I came on. I actually, I went online because I was like, it's sometimes hard to remember when a book comes out that's so drastically different. Like, you felt it in 2001 when you read it, and you were like, oh, but over time you kind of forget what things were like, or like what was happening in X-Men. Like, why was this such like a it's like the same thing when Morrison did the JLA, and you go back and you read what was happening in the Justice League, and you're like, oh my god, like what was happening in the Justice? So I went back, I did a little internet sleuthing to read some old X-Men issues of like the stuff that happened right before this, and I was just like, oh my god, it was like Scott Lobdell, like they were fine books, but they were so like dusty would be the way.
I think they were still recovering from the Chuck Austin years.
It's just like there's so many words on the page. It's so Claremontian, and sort of
Claremontian.
Like
don't you fucking disparage Claremont, my friend.
We will
Claremont is obviously a genius who had more to do with the success of the X-Men, like obviously huge, but like he has a certain style of storytelling.
He spared no words getting there, Tom.
Yeah, and this wasn't Claremont. This was other people still within the like that realm of like how you tell like an X-Men story. And I was just like, oh my god, yeah, now I remember like when this came out, what it was like from what Frank Quitely's art looked like to how the storytelling like was just like, oh my god, yeah, now I remember. Like this was
people freak the fuck out.
Drastically different and just like how it looked and like how it read from X-Men comics, like this wasn't what X-Men comics looked like X-Men comics were like the soap opera was turned all the way up to 1,000, right? And like the way characters were designed was sort of like still very beholden to like 90s, sort of like in that 90s hangover of like what a mutant design looks like, and like
the X-Men cartoon.
All mutants fly and their weapons are all their powers are essentially like laser blasts, and like just it was all of a sudden my brain went back to 2001. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Like when I read this, I was like, oh.
When I was reading it, one of the things that struck me as interesting was the idea that and it's not a big part, but there is a small part in it where they kind of, in a clumsy way, sort of like explain why they're all wearing different like leather costumes.
Yeah.
And it's like, why did you ever have us dress up like superheroes in the first place? And when I read it this time, I'm like, that's kind of an odd thing. But then thinking back, like, they were wearing spandex, at this point exclusively. Like you never saw a superhero really wear anything other than spandex and capes and that kind of a thing. And nowadays, I don't think it's nearly as strange to think of a superhero in like a leather pants and a jacket and more
and a lot
actual
because of this book, I think.
Yeah. But I thought that was interesting. That struck me as like, oh yeah, they had to kind of let people know why. They had to kind of like let the fans know why.
It was. I remember
Cyclops wearing this like weird blue and yellow bondage outfit. Like why is he just like like it was like, oh my god, yeah, I remember this was like, whoa, what, like they look like this, and like there's only 5 of them. And like just like everything was just like everything that had been, and it's a classic case with any of these classic superhero characters, right? Like you have your boom and bust years, right? You have like someone comes in, like revitalizes it, and then it becomes successful, and it expands so much that it becomes kind of like, oh God, like there's too much, like not everything is as interesting as the thing that spawned it, right? And it's bloated and kind of like, oh, what is even going on? Like, why are mutants, like the way Morrison and Quietly refocused what like mutants were in a way of like resetting that and like oh my God, okay, yeah, like this is like there's real tension, right? As opposed to sort of like where the X books had sometimes get at points where like the mutant thing just kind of, yeah, it's there. It's almost like, yeah, I mean, people are afraid of mutants, but like you don't feel that in the stories all the time. Like it's just like a subtext to the stories. So, like making the decision to like in the second issue or third one, I forget which one, kill 16 million mutants, just like, okay, like we're gonna just reset like what's happening and like reset the tension of like the reality of mutants on Earth, and is like remembering all that stuff again of like, oh yeah, that was like crazy reading that back then, or like making the Sentinels not look like the Sentinels. Big 60s robots and like just like all that
I
stuff.
still miss those.
Yeah, or it's like, oh my God, yeah, like that.
Well, I think the overwhelming theme, and putting myself back in 2001 when it came out, is we're gonna make the X-Men weird, and we're gonna have fun doing it. I mean, it became a almost weird for weird's sake. I mean, you get thrown in right in the first issue with what, Ugly John, or what's his name, the
with three faces.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean,
we're gonna do a bunch of weird mutants that have really no useful powers.
But that wasn't the first time we've seen that in the X-Men books. I mean, you had the Morlocks, and that kind of a thing. I don't know that it was necessarily so weird. I think it was certainly new in the sense of, a different spin on the X-Men to some degree, or at least, I don't know. To me, it's a really interesting book because it is two things. And I think, I think Morrison did this really well with obviously All-Star Superman as well. The idea of, kind of retconning a classic hero, but in some ways, like distilling them down to their beginnings and their origins even more. You know what I mean? Like Wolverine's still Wolverine, maybe more Wolverine than he had been in years. And Cyclops is more Cyclops.
An actual character. Is an actual character. Like that's the other thing that he does so well in this is like actually give each one of the X-Men like a real character besides personality, right? Besides like besides defining them by their relationship to another person, right? Like they have their own motivations, and like, like I was trying to remember the other times that Cyclops actually was a character, right? Where you were like, oh, like I kind of get what this guy is about. And like seeing, Morrison did, such a great job of that in the writing, and artistically, all the artists did a great job of like bringing Jean Grey was a real character, right? And Emma Frost was a real character, and even Professor X, like instead of just these characters sort of like playing like Professor X is the savior of mutants and he protects the kids, and Scott is the leader who's in love with Jean, right? And like just playing those roles, like kind of like giving them discernible personalities. Even Wolverine, like you were saying, like Wolverine has a personality. He's not just like a caricature of like what Wolverine is,
Cyclops is actually, he's distant and cold, but there's a reason for it. Like they touch on, why he's like this, why he's calculating and cold and sort of, impersonal, and he's actually slim for the first time in forever, and Jean is a real human being, not just sort of the Phoenix or Marvel Girl, the cute girl, you know what I mean? Like she's an actual human being with like emotions and thoughts and that kind of thing. And Beast even a lot of the time spent with him is him kind of dealing with the fact that he's going through a second mutation, and how that affects his love life and different things. And yeah, it was interesting for sure. And it definitely, it's funny, like that was new, because the X-Men became, like you said, sort of this copy. Everyone was trying to copy Claremont, and so the copy just got weaker and weaker, and it just became like a pastiche.
Uninteresting.
Yeah.
It was that's how I think of late 90s X-Men is very uninteresting.
I mean, it's interesting you bring up the Morlocks too, because I think it is like a thing that gets reintroduced in the X-Men. Is like, what if you're a mutant whose power isn't useful?
Right.
Like, well,
there's 8 million of them. There's got to be some losers.
Yeah.
There's got to,
Yeah, there's 16 million on Genosha. Like, they can't all shoot laser beams and fly, or like the way they introduce, and I can't remember if this is, I read a little past the first trade too, when they introduce Angel, the new Angel, the girl who's got like the fly powers, making her definitely, like the X-Men always have like a Kitty Pryde or a Jubilee or like some young character that you can be like, this is the character through which we meet the other characters and they're the connection to us. But it's like, what if we make that person really not into doing any of this and make them like, like in a way, like really teenagerish.
Like a kid forced to play sports that doesn't want.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to be a mutant. I don't want to hang out with you. Like, this is not what I want to do. Like,
come on, kid, jump in our jet airplane and go fight robots.
Yeah, exactly. You're now a superhero. It's like, I don't know. Like, I'm not into that. Like, this is not a good.
The last issue in this, starts off with I can't think of the character's name. The beak-faced
Beak.
It is Beak. Yeah. It's like he's not really very good at being an X-Man, and they're trying to like level him up. But it's like, yeah, this guy's gonna die. This guy's he's terrible.
It's like, and just resetting that of like being not every mutant is Cyclops,
right?
Or like where like he's super powerful and like can handle himself and like looks good and can essentially fit in like wherever he wants to go, right? Like the sort of like. In a way, Morrison, did such a good job of also just like resetting like that fundamental part of the X-Men about like the being an outsider. Like, what does it mean to like not be able to fit in? Like when you're somebody who's this group that people are afraid of, and some of you can walk outside the door and just not use your power, and that's okay. You're gonna pass, but so Beak can't. Like that's what he is, right. And like the X-Men always had sort of like these ways around it, like image projectors and like, there's like storytelling ways to get around that.
Yeah. I'll telepathically make everyone
yeah.
see you as a human,
Yeah. Where it's like kind of like not having that and be like, actually, no, like some of you, and as the series goes on, that obviously becomes more and more part of it is some of the students, the ones who can't just fit in wherever they go, they get brought together by, spoilers, Magneto.
What?
Manipulates them into, Magneto is right. That's what the shirts that people are buying in the book, where he was he sort of bands together the mutants who can't fit. Right, like they're the ones who can't like pass as normal if they chose to,
Wait, you mean that happens? That you'll find a group of disaffected people, and they're more apt to follow like an autocratic voice.
Sort of
it's an inherent problem with the idea of equality. Is that you can never you can never break it down where there's not inequality. You know what I mean? In you know, if you try and like racism, you know, we're trying to, all races are the same, everyone is the same, but then within a race there's inequality. You know, if you're light skinned, you know, black, if you're sort of, there's never, you're always going to find a group within a group within a group within a group that is not going to have the same equality as the rest of the group. It's just,
I think all races are equal except for the Dutch, because fuck them.
And then the U-men, right? Then the U-men thing that
the U-men
introduces of like the idea of like people that think it's unfair that mutants get to be mutants and that they should not, you know, like, which is just
Except
like a wild idea. Yeah, just like a wild idea, you know, like, I mean, so that's,
but it really, it's funny, you know, you were saying it's prescient. It's like, I mean, look what we're dealing, you know, look what's going on today with like transgenderism and the idea, you know, and it's like trying to be accepted for a decision that you make in your life to, you know, I don't know if I'm saying it the right way, but you know what I mean? Like, not to equate transgenders to people that modify their bodies bionically, but I mean, there is some sort of parallel there to some degree in the,
I mean, there's an interesting angle on identity and choosing your identity, and like, you know, Morrison obviously is those are themes that come up a lot in his work, is like the idea of like choosing who you are and like what you identify, you know, and sometimes it's heroes and sometimes it's villains, and sometimes like the tension of that, you know, like to me it's like a really remarkable run, because it is like it is kind of classic X-Men, right? Like he goes back to the stuff that makes the X-Men interesting, right? And he pulls little pieces, you know, he eventually pulls Phoenix in, and he pulls these things, and he like takes little pieces from the history, but he also like makes it feel, he introduces new angles on these themes and new things to like think about in regards to the X-Men, and makes it very entertaining. Like, just aside from all that stuff, like they're just really fun comic books. Like,
why can't Grant Morrison write everything like this? Like, I love this Grant Morrison. I love when he does this, but then there's the Grant Morrison who does other stuff that is just like, you know, the invisible, and you know, it's just like, oh God almighty.
It comes back around, but it's like, it's like All-Star Superman or stuff like that, where it's like, oh my God, like this is just wildly entertaining textbooks with just stuff like now the Sentinels are wild and they can look like whatever they want to look like, and now they killed all the mutants on Genosha, you know, like oh, by the way, you know, it's funny because the story preceding this was all about Magneto becoming the ruler of Genosha and wanting to like start a war. And it's funny to think that like in 2 issues, Morrison was like, we'll just kill all of them. And that's like,
it is so nonchalant too. Like,
it happened. It's just like 2 pages.
And 16 million people are dead. And there's barely any kind of like, you know, memoriam for it. There's no, like, I mean, you have a little bit in the next issue, but it's pretty quickly glossed over that all.
Like, all right, I got a story to tell. Get out of my way.
Even the fact
that it comes up again later and later, but I mean, in hindsight, I get it, because I think it's the idea of like no one could stop it. Like, there was not going to be some like X-Men crossover where all the X-Men come together and save all 60. Like, it wasn't going to happen. Like, someone did this awful thing and it happened, and like there's no escaping. Like,
if I have any complaint, is that it was, and part of it is because, you know, the way they collect this series and these 4 issues, essentially, kind of, it feels like it ends really quickly, and the whole death of all these people are shuffled under the rug really fast. Obviously, as you read the rest of the series, that's not the case, But when you just read this one volume, it's like,
you're like, oh wow, that's
that's
but
fucking
it does come up many times later about the repercussions of like, oh my god, like this thing happened, right? And like, what does that mean? You know, like 16 million mutants were murdered, and like no one could do anything to stop it. And like some people don't care that it happened or don't believe that it happened. And like the idea of, you know, the Magneto is right thing, where it's sort of like the reframing of Magneto is perhaps not, it's always interesting, right? Because it's the more interesting X-Men stories are always the one where it's like, I don't know if Xavier's right.
right.
Like, like he might be wrong too, like maybe he isn't right to tell everyone he's a mutant and put all the students in his school in danger. I'm sure he thinks he's doing the right thing, but he might be wrong. Magneto might be wrong. Like none of these two dudes, guess what? These two old dudes might both be wrong and are like leading all these young people.
Let's be honest. Has anyone that has led a lot of people anywhere for the most part been right more than they've been wrong?
No.
Is any
wrong.
Leader, like I don't know.
Mostly wrong. Wrong.
Is it Xavier who admits or who comes out as a mutant, or was he possessed by Cassandra Nova when he did that?
Oh, at that point I can't. I have to go back and read it. It might be possible.
I think that was Cassandra Nova that kind of forced him to do that, to put things in motion.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's like, it is this idea of Magneto is wrong and Xavier is right. And like, I always like it when someone can put a twist on it of like, actually, like Magneto is right to be scared of what will happen to mutants. And like, here's the proof of why he should be scared. Is
there's
like,
16 million reasons why.
Yeah, like
I think I mean, other than really early X-Men stuff where it was this sort of good versus evil, very black and white binary.
It is mostly.
But I think beyond that, even Claremont, it was more that question of like, are these guys right? Who's more right than the other? Who's more wrong than the other? Are they both wrong?
I think the difference though is when Claremont did it, it was always in the context of now Magneto's a good guy. There's always like that tension of like, actually now Magneto, like when he was in charge of the New Mutants and Doug Ramsey dies and like these sort of things of like, it was always, and it was really good storytelling when I was, I always loved the idea of Magneto being in charge of the X-Men because it was such like a classic comic book thing of like, now your greatest villain is the person in charge, right? And I was always like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And, yeah, right. Because it's like, it's a great twist. It's a great.
Why is this suit purple now? I don't understand.
I never liked the purple suit. But like,
was that John Romita Jr. that designed that?
Might be,
yeah, it was about that era.
But the thing I do find interesting about this is like, you're sort of like, Magneto is right, and also Magneto is definitely definitely a villain, and like the internal tension, at least when I've keep reading it, of like, okay, like Magneto's not going to turn into a good guy at the end of this story and like lead the X-Men, right? Like it was like a slightly different go at that. I also recommend anyone go back and read the issue before the first new X-Men issue, and you'll have like a brain meltdown of like, they feel like they came out like 40 years apart. Like it's just like from the way like the lettering is done.
Oh yeah.
To like everything. It's wild.
Yeah. People freaked, man. It was a polarizing book. People loved it or hated it, I felt.
I think the other thing with Magneto too is, the difference between him and Xavier is, sort of, they both have valid perspectives, whether one's right or the wrong, but it's sort of like how they go about, it's a very classic sort of liberal conservative kind of argument between the two of them. You know what I mean? Like Xavier's thing is we're going to help people, and they're going to understand we're the good guys. And Magneto's
That's
always,
why he had him wear spandex.
yeah, exactly.
It's like make them look like superheroes.
Yeah,
that's something people trust, like as opposed to.
But I think Magneto is more, sort of like, no, we have to force them. There's no way to, come to some sort of agreement. We just have to use our force to.
Magneto believes, and rightfully so in some cases, that the war has already been declared. They're not trying to avert a war. The war is already happening, and Charles is working towards peace, and Magneto's like, no, we're at war.
Awesome.
And
Hippies versus the
hard hats.
Hard hats, Tom. Which side are you on? The hippies?
Only way to look through history is to divide everyone into two caricatures.
Hippies or hard hats?
The only way is to think about history is through those two lenses.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
All that matters.
To go into the less heavy portions of it, I also enjoyed. I could stand to read more Morrison writing Cyclops and Wolverine together. Like
just the first page. The first page where Cyclops is blowing a hole, and he's like, I think you can stop that, Wolverine. Wolverine's just up there digging away at this thing's back.
Yeah, and like he did such a good job of like taking those two characters who I think had, like we said, fallen into the trap of like, this is what their relationship is. And so everyone's copying that dynamic and now putting like a different twist on it, or a different way of like, how do they relate to each other, right? And like kind of seeing like a different way of, where Wolverine almost sort of like gets Cyclops a little bit more now because of what Cyclops had been through with some stuff. I can't even remember. I think he died and came back, and had something to do with it. It was some, X-Men stuff, right? Where it's like, all of a sudden you're like, oh, like Wolverine kind of gets him a little bit more. And like, you can kind of see more connection between the two of them and how they relate to each other, which was like a nice little subtle thing. But like, I always appreciated that. It's like, oh, that's like a little different. Like I've never felt these two characters relate that way, to each other.
Yeah, it was always the love triangle, right? Like that was sort of, and everybody just kind of played off of that. It was just that was what those characters were to some degree. And this is like, no, that's, and he even, in the last issue, it's like he has that moment between Jean and Wolverine, and where she's, Wolverine could easily at that point take advantage of Jean in this, vulnerable moment, and Jean wants him to, but he doesn't. And he kind of puts an end to it. And I think that's Morrison sort of like going, no, this is over. This love triangle is over. Let's stop telling that thing. Story.
Because as he says, it's never, we both know it would never work,
Right. We know it. We know it won't work. So,
my biggest problem with that page, when did Wolverine get to be taller than Jean? Am I right?
I didn't notice, but yeah.
It's tall Wolverine.
When Hugh Jackman started playing him,
it's tall. Yeah, it's tall Wolverine.
Tall Wolverine. Yeah, where it's like, we're now going to bury this. Like, this story is not going to be a Jean, Scott, and Wolverine story. Like, it's going to be a different thing. Yeah. Sure, there's going to be soap opera, but it's not going to be this one.
Emma Frost.
Yeah, like, it's going to be different soap opera than the one. Yeah, it's always like, oh, okay. Because it's like, you're like, oh God, it's going to be one of these stories. And he immediately is like, nope, like, it's not going to be that. It's not the story you're expecting to have happen.
Yeah. And we talk about the fashion changes, but this outfit of Emma Frost is fucking ridiculous. But quietly, what is it about him that he can draw people that are super thin but frumpy at the same time.
Well, he does a
He
lot. Like he doesn't do like muscle-y.
Like everything
Yeah.
He
looks
puts
kind
fat
of
on everyone.
Everything looks kind of squishy.
Yeah, everybody's
Yeah.
got a layer of fat on them. I mean, they're they're more like like Wolverine's like a longshoreman. He's
Yeah.
not built like a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
He's built, like probably he would be. I mean, guy, if you look at fighters, unless they're cutting weight, they're not like fucking
Yeah.
Ripped.
like that, and he, even the women he draws, they're not just like muscle bound, ripped, no body fat. It's like, no, he puts body fat on him. He puts
Yeah.
actual, like most people would be, even if you're in shape, like,
Yeah.
I mean, guys, it's like you look at a movie where, Hugh Jackman playing as Wolverine. Well, you know how hard he worked and how much he starved himself for that one
Yeah.
scene where he's shirtless, it's
Yeah.
like,
And
he's
right
fucking-
after they said cut, he went and ate a cheeseburger. And
yeah,
he's like, "Oh,
drank
thank
like
God."
12
Yeah.
gallons of water because he hadn't probably been drinking for fucking 3 days,
Yeah.
But it's an interesting way that he has the ability to draw. I love his villains. I
Mhm.
love the way, and with Morrison and Miller too, like Authority, he did this too, where like his villains don't necessarily look powerful, but they certainly look evil, and they just
Yeah.
look like there's something inside them that's kind of wrong, rotting, or something. They just look evil, and the way Morrison, even the way, like Cassandra, how he builds her up as this just despicable fucking
Mhm.
person that's just truly evil, like a different evil than Magneto. Magneto is like a sympathetic evil, like most
Yeah.
Marvel villains have some sort of like empathy you can
Yeah.
can reach out to, but not Morrison's villains. Are just fucking evil. They're just and
Like her whole purpose is just evil.
Right.
She's like, yeah, like
Extinction.
that's it. Yeah, like
Yeah. Genocide.
there is no redeeming quality. Like from birth, from inside the womb, Xavier, had been fighting her. Like it's yeah, I mean it's the menace of like creating these bad guys, or of like even like the U-men, right, in their suits because they don't want to breathe like the contaminated air, yeah, like creating like this these villains that you would think in a lesser conceptual space someone would make them all look like Superman or something, right? As opposed to like, let's put them in suits because they're like don't want to touch the contaminated world, right? And that's like such a different thing than what you would expect. You'd expect like this guy's got laser beam eyes and this guy is ripped because they saw like, but it's like not that, right? Like they went a totally different direction on like what these guys will look like, right? And so yeah, like the villains are so interesting looking and so unexpected.
Well, I think it's super interesting too, of like the idea that, if you look at some of the stuff that they are saying in today's world, like people would be like, yeah, they're right. That's these, they're making a decision. This is how they want to live their lives. We have to accept them for who they are. You know what I mean? Like, and it's such an interesting thing that, that is sort of harkens back to the sort of empathetic. I don't know if that's what Morrison meant at this time, but I don't think he was. I mean, I didn't feel like he was, poking fun at it or you know what I mean? Like he seemed to be playing it pretty straight in the sense of like, here's a legitimate argument that these people have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so it makes them a compelling sort of villain.
It makes them,
I don't even know. I mean, I guess they are the villains at that point, but it's interesting.
it gives them like a motivation you can understand for like harvesting mutants is like they want to be mutants, and like the tension of that, like
Yeah, I guess that does make them bad guys.
Yeah.
The whole
I mean,
harvesting.
but their motivation,
Yeah.
their motivation isn't the idea of someone being like, why should mutants be the only ones who get to, like, I forget the exact words, like rise above their genetics.
Yeah, but that's what I mean.
Like,
The way he wrote it, it was like, oh, that's a compelling argument. Like that's
yeah.
It wasn't
Like the heart of it is like, oh, okay, like that's interesting, because there would be people like that, right? There would be people who would be would be jealous, I guess, like
Yeah,
in a
of course there
sense.
would be.
Like, why
Yeah.
would I?
Yeah.
Why can I not have X-ray vision or have wings?
Do you
or
think
like what?
Do you think if Superman exists, Elon Musk wouldn't be trying to make himself into fucking Superman? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
Elon Musk
constantly.
would be Lex Luthor in
yeah.
2
Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah.
In 2 seconds. I have to save humanity from Superman.
Yeah, where it's like the motivation behind what they do is very understandable and very like speaks to a truth of like, actually there would be people who feel that way, right? Now you play it up to the villain level of like they're now going to go kill mutants to like steal their parts to like graft them onto them.
Get
and
over
that's
the
where
line,
villainy-
you know, but
that's
Yeah.
the villainy
gotta break
part of it, but
some
it comes from a thing that like is true, right?
Right,
And
right.
like from a true feeling and a true emotion of like, oh, I wish I was Wolverine. Why is Wolverine the only one? You know, like the feeling that draws people to the characters, right? Like, I wish I was that. Like, why can't I be that? And playing it up to the extreme.
Yeah, that's an interesting commentary. You know, maybe on fandom and on society and on a lot of things.
Oh, for sure.
And not that many pages. And that's the you know, that's the thing that drives me fucking insane about Morrison. And maybe it's just my own stupidity. It's just like he's so brilliant that when he dumbs things down to this level, it's still brilliant. Just brilliant enough for me to understand, you know, like
Yeah, they Morrison does such a great job of like finding interesting angles and like playing it up, but making it still a superhero story. You know, it's
Yeah.
still fundamentally a superhero story, but with just like a thing you maybe haven't thought of before.
I
like,
don't know.
an approach
I
to
don't
it.
know why, but I find that I'm able to both enjoy and understand Morrison's comics when he works with Quietly. That
well, Quietly's a
partnership
master
works for
storyteller.
me.
I mean, Quietly's
yeah.
one of the best storyteller artists
Right.
in comics for sure.
I mean, one of the things that when you look at the issues before they started, one of the things that's just mind blowing is the amount of fucking captions on the old stuff, right? Or of like
Yeah.
how much storytelling, and it's nothing against like the artists who worked on it. That was like the style was still
Well, that's the
in
script,
that
man.
world.
Yeah.
That's like there's a lot of words
what
on
so
the page.
before this, it was just the X-Men book, right? It wasn't New
Yeah.
X-Men, so it would
Yeah,
have
it
been
was
like,
just X-Men.
but the numbering's the same. So it's
Numbering is the same. 113.
This is the same series as like the Jim Lee X-Men, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that famous #1 Jim Lee issue. This is one.
Yeah.
What 14?
But just like the style of it is just like, oh my god, like wow, like in 1 month it went from that's why people freaked out, because it was like, oh my god, like what is this? Like this doesn't look like an X-Men. This doesn't look like X-Men. This looks like something else. Like, oh my
Yeah.
god.
I don't know if I can think of a book that just like mid-series had such a seismic shift in it like this. I mean, there's always going to be, you know, like the Batman Year One, but that was
Well, nowadays it would have gotten to #1. They wouldn't have not
Yeah.
made it new X-Men #114. They would have just been like new X-Men #1. You know, so it's like
that was a conscious choice by Quesada he wanted it to be a continuation, and because he didn't want to start it over.
Mm-hmm. I
Even
respect
though-
it. I always liked it. The idea of that, like, this is part of the whole thing, right? Like, this is not some new weird. It is weird. I mean, it is new X-Men, but the idea of like having the numbering continue was always cool.
Yeah, I think that was a sign that it's like, we're all in. This is Grant's story, and it's sorry guys, this is continuity.
It's like it's like, oh my god, what is happening?
This is continuity. This is not an Elseworlds tale,
I mean,
or something like that.
It's funny because I recently, for fun, picked up the first copy of JLA, the first trade of JLA, because it's very similar in some way. This, like, the situation, like the Justice League books have been like essentially old and dusty for years and years and years, and like still, like, and essentially since the blah ha ha JLA hadn't really been that relevant, right? And like Morrison comes in, just sort of like resets everything, brings back this like the classic Justice League, like introduces all this new stuff that you're kind of like, oh my god, like this is crazy, like what's he doing, I will say I like New X-Men better because I think it's actually there's way more personality to it, like to the characters than I do think in GLA. It falls a little into the Gardner Fox thing at times, where you
could move the bubbles around.
Yeah, he's struggling a little bit to like really separate them out from each other within the context of the book. Now, of course, later on, I mean, Morrison writes one of the great Superman stories, like one of my favorite All-Star Supermans, like one of my favorite, and I would say like one of the quintessential modern Superman stories. So it's not like you can't write Superman. I just think in the context of the JLA, it was harder to sort of make those characters kind of feel that different. Like, whereas in New X-Men, he really like grasped onto these ways of like we were talking about, like Wolverine and Cyclops are relating differently to each other, and Beast is having like sort of this existential like crisis about who he is, right? The big laughing Beast, of yesteryear is gone, and now it's like he is very much dealing with like, what am I? Like what separates me from the animals, as I seem to be getting closer and closer to them, right? And Jean Grey, dealing with the idea of like, her relationship with Scott is gone, and like, or is falling apart, and that's been her character for 30 years at that point. Yeah. Like, that's what her character is, and like exploring that idea of like, okay, like if that goes away, like what am I, and like what is like my role in the X-Men. So it's great. I love it. It's such a great book.
It is that.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, man.
Bravo.
It was a great pick. I'm gonna keep I'm gonna go back. I don't know if I ever read the entire run beginning to end, but yeah, I think I'm gonna go back. It just
there's so many things in there. As I was reading it, and I have the omnibus. I took the cover off for this. I get this. So I was like flipping through it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. There's Phantom X, and there's like all this stuff coming up, where it's like, oh, it's not Weapon X, it's Weapon 10. Like all this stuff that, all this really fun Morrison like twists on things, from like it's just awesome. I look forward to finishing it because I'm just like, oh, that's right. He did so much stuff.
Now, do you have
time?
There's a like an omnibus, right? Or
yeah, I got the omnibus.
Right
there. Do you enjoy the omnibus experience, or
it's not? It's of a size that you can actually read. Like it doesn't get quite to that level of some of the omnibus where they're like 1,000 page, like where they're double
The
this.
Amazing Spider-Man one.
Yeah, where it's kind of like I can't like carry this around. Like,
Oh God!
like
Kill someone with this thing.
yeah.
What is that one? Oh, Amazing Fantasy. Yeah, that's ridiculous. I never picked those. I have a whole shelf of those fucking books, and I never look
Oh
through
God!
them. I don't even know why I have them.
I read them every once in a while. I read
Neil
these-
and Julie Johnson said Alan Moore's Supreme was a complete 180. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, but you know, it's like Supreme's not one of the main big two books. You know, it's I agree probably. You know that would qualify, but yeah, it's it's not like Fantastic Four, or, Spider-Man, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are things like it that have happened.
But this one, it was an earthquake. Every comic book fan going into comic book shops was aware that Morrison and Quietly were doing X-Men. It was news.
I mean, it's such a drastic change storytelling, the way it looks, the way the characters look, the way the story is told. Like I said, if you look at issue 113 to 114, it feels like more than a month has passed between those two issues. It's like, oh my God, because what makes Quietly such a great artist, what makes Morrison such a great writer is Quietly's art is you can't quite pin it down. If that came out today, I'd be like, that is from today. It sort of escapes the whatever trappings of that time period are. He exists outside of that, which is cool, right? It's what makes his art so unique, and why he's such a great choice to do an all-star Superman, where it's this book is not trapped in the look of a certain time. It is its own
Timeless.
Thing, and this is
So-
Quietly.
So here's the synopsis for the issue 113, which was the Eve of Destruction conclusion. Following the death of Dazzler, Magneto faces each of Jean Grey's team of X-Men in turn. After attempting to pull the iron from Polly's bloodstream, he sends him flying into the upper atmosphere, leaving Northstar to retrieve him and resuscitate him on an American battle cruiser 50 miles off Genosha. After this, Polly softens the Northstar, having thus far jibed at his sexuality. As Cyclops and Wolverine break into the palace, killing two guards on the way, Wolverine wonders whether Cyclops' experience with Apocalypse changed him, given his failure to berate Wolverine for the deaths. Meanwhile, Magneto constrains Frenzy with shards of metal, correctly guessing that she is under Jean Grey's psychic control. When Leu attempts to attack him, Magneto pulls together pieces of iron to encase himself and diffuse the heat before encasing her in metal filings. He then grabs Hector, who for the first time demonstrates another side to his mutation beyond his appearance. He transfers this appearance to Magneto, who is disorientated to be delayed long enough for Cyclops to enter and knock him off his feet. He continues trying to hit Magneto with optic blasts to deflect them until he is able to hit Cyclops with a piece of his now broken helmet.
God. Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah.
It's like a description of one battle. It's so different. Such a different type of storytelling of
It was Scott Lobdell and Lennon Francis Yu was the artist.
Yeah, young O'Neill Francis Yu.
Yeah, where it's very different. Oh my God. And then the next month it's yeah, so I mean you just read that, and then the next month you go to pick up X-Men, and right off the bat you're they're wearing leather jackets, and there's wild sentinels, and yeah, it's just crazy.
Pretty different for sure.
Pretty different. Very different.
Very different. I love the on this website that I'm looking this at, marvel.fandom.com, there's a, breaks down the issue, and it says featured characters: X-Men, Phoenix / Jean Grey Summers, North Star, Jean-Paul Barbier leaves group, Frenzy leaves group, Sumpire leaves group, Omerta leaves group, Wraith leaves group, Cyclops, Wolverine, Dazzler leaves group, Professor X rejoins group. There's a lot going on in one issue.
Like, clear the decks, baby. Clear the decks.
Grant Morrison's
coming in to make it weird. He's gonna make it weird.
Reset. Big time. Yeah. Oh,
so if you have not read this, go get it and read it. It's awesome.
Shout out to Hoopla, as always. I think we try and make every Trade Talks pick something that you can get through your.
And they have the whole run on Hoopla, the whole Morrison run. So if you're interested in reading it, I do recommend it. It pays off, like all the threads that start in the beginning. He pays them off in the end, and it's pretty rad. And now I know in continuity they kind of undone some of the things because he kind of went hog wild.
He went real crazy on the end.
Yeah, he went wild in the end. But like I said, like we've said before, I admire the audacity to be like, let's make this weird. Let's go for it. They can change it later. Like
you can always go back.
You can always go back. And X-Men have many times. Many times.
The nature.
Yeah. It was also, we didn't really get into this either, but it was interesting reading it and sort of like having the mind space of how much I enjoyed what Hickman did with the X-Men recently, where it was sort of a similar thing where he sort of reset like what the X-Men are and kind of did a very bold, like, this is what the X-Men are, and like really redefined it. And, now you could say perhaps we're in the phase where that bold decision has spawned a lot of lesser iterations of
it's starting to grow.
Original story. But like, having just recently read another one of these where somebody came in conceptually and sort of like kind of blew it up a little bit and like made it interesting, kind of reset what you thought about the X-Men and their villains in a really interesting way.
Yeah, because it's kind of the same thing. X-Men was getting boring. It was uninteresting. And
I mean, I guess it's like I always think about like I think the X-Men are just so like susceptible to that. Like they're so susceptible to having like there's so many X-Men, and it's so easy to just have more mutants, right? They just pop up, right? Now we got more. Now we have less. Now we got more of them, right? It's like, I don't know if there's some fundamental part of that makes it so easy to be like, now we have 8 X books suddenly, or we now have a dozen. And it's like, whoa, this is like too many X books. Like they just like pop up like weeds when you're not looking. There's all of a sudden like 4 new X books.
Go out and check your tomato bushes, and all of a sudden there's 14 X-Men weeds. Yeah,
if you're not careful, you're gonna get you gotta check your walls for X books.
The crawling.
Oh yeah, I found a few. I found myself.
Here's your problem right here. You got too many X books.
This whole space crawl space filled with Magneto miniseries. You got.
Oh, I found a nest of Wolverine.
Yeah. Well, you got here's a New Mutants relaunch that you weren't expecting.
As you guys are literally, as we're joking about this, I hear something.
Oh no, you got
crawling in my fucking ceiling. It sounded like
you got
I think you got a night crawler in there.
You got a warlock.
I'm not even
resurrection.
kidding. There's something crawling in my fucking ceiling.
You got yourself a night crawler.
That's a night crawler there.
I got a night crawler. That was
you got weird. One of those stories where Nightcrawler's a pirate up in there. That's
it's a bunch of bamfs.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was.
What would you call a bunch of bamfs?
Bimp.
Bamf.
I don't know.
Bamf.
You know, kind of like a murder of crows.
Your
or-
infestation and if you don't check your long boxes, you'll just find like new miniseries popping up if you have enough X books.
I have two questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
One, why does Hank have a baby doll at his workspace in the X Mansion? Did you notice that? There was like this little cute baby doll
I don't know.
sitting there in
Maybe it was something that
first issue as it was the weirdest, like, why a baby doll? Why is there a baby doll
why is
there?
there a doll there?
Huh.
It was odd.
There has to be an answer, right?
Quietly lost a bet or something.
I don't know. It was odd for sure. And have you guys ever noticed, and I think Frank Quietly is certainly one of them, but a lot of times artists look like their drawings.
Yes.
Like Frank Quietly looks like a Frank Quietly
Quietly. Yeah.
drawing, which is an interesting thing. I mean, I guess it's not that weird of a thing. Like they use themselves for reference, but there are definitely artists that look like their drawings. You know, it's kind of weird, but yeah, that was it. That was my two questions. Did you guys enjoy the Van Sciver issue and the Lenel?
I remember when the annual came out because I bought it and it's like, oh fuck, okay, it's sideways. That was the sideways issue.
I hate the sideways issue. I just
the Zorn issue.
I mean, I love the story. I hate the gimmick of the sideways issue because I'm just like if you're going to we're going to get into a format. Now we're going to get into some real formatting.
I kind of like it on a tablet, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, because like you are in control. You're in control of the tactile experience of it, but it's like when it's stapled and it's not, the reason why you staple something in the middle and you have the two sides to hold is because it feels good in your hand, right? Like and then when you flip it around, it like,
now it's clumsy.
To me, it's clumsy. It's like hard to hold. It's like not like the same tactile experience, right? And it's like, if you're going to do that, you have to tell a story that uses that format in a way that is essential to it.
That warrants
that like I'm, it's not like it's a lot of work, but you're right. It's uncomfortable. It's not built to be held like that. We don't hold books that way. Like it's weird. So it's like I love the story and it's nothing against the art in it too. It's just like, if you flip the format like that, I just feel like you gotta like pay it off more, like make it more worth my time. Because every time I read that issue, ever since it's come out, I'm always like, I like this story. I wish I could just read it in a more comfortable way. Like that's not like there's no reason for it to be like this other than like this was the gimmick for these annuals, I guess.
Yeah. Was it all of the Marvel annuals that year did that?
Well, there also is an issue coming up that's the all silent issue, which is rad because like
9/11
quietly like kills it in like the silent issue because like he doesn't need any words to like tell a rad story, like, and it's like, oh man, he just murders it in there. Like it's like, this is awesome. Like I totally understand what's happening in the story.
That's another weird thing to kind of think of. This series started. This is pre 9/11. But like just.
Yeah, think.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if you've read it in a while.
This is September of 2001.
Think about what happens later in this story. That it's wild to think about, like. When Magneto like destroys New York,
yes,
like Like, it's wild to think about that. I mean,
Like right before or right after? Was it right?
like a year or two after, or
Yeah.
maybe
it's a little
longer,
ways
maybe a
down.
couple years, but still, right? Like, it would be weird now. Maybe not, but you know what I mean. Like, it's like,
Too soon.
obviously
Too soon,
it's
dude.
fiction. Obviously, it's fictional. I don't, who cares? It's just like fun. It's weird to think about. It's weird to think about my life before the collapse of society.
It
was different.
Better.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's weird to think about. I'm old enough to remember before.
Is this why you have such hatred for old people?
Oh God, I hate old people. It's just like arguing about hippies and hard hats. It's just like, oh my God.
They created the
guys.
country, Tom.
I know, right? It's just like whenever I see a thing, whenever there's like an argument where someone's like, hippies ended the war in Vietnam. It's like the war in Vietnam ended when North Vietnam won in 1975. I don't know if you know that. We like bombed Cambodia after the war. This is an entirely separate discussion, but
I'm just poking the bear.
I know that conversation on Twitter was made my mind just like melt. Where I was just like, "Oh no!"
I mean, they did have something to do. I mean, they put pressure, but it's honestly,
just like
it was probably more detrimental to Nixon's war. Stopping the war and pulling people out of the war than it was helpful. You know what I mean? Like it sort of reinforced his hatred of liberals.
I just hate like this. I responded to somebody else who responded that where I was like, it's like the heavy time life book energy to that discussion of like all history. That history, by the way, that you lived through, you are now recounting like the simplified version. If anyone should be cognizant of perhaps more nuance to history, it would be like you, the people that lived through it. But instead, you are like, if anything, like buying into the oversimplification of your own experience that you lived through, which is what makes me crazy. But anyway,
rose-colored glasses, my friend.
Rose-colored glasses, exactly. Yeah.
So I wanted to tell you this. I before we were doing the show today, I just happened to look up some Quietly stuff.
That's so brilliant.
This right here, this Superman by him, and just showing the drawings of slumping Clark Kent and this upright Superman character, and how he was able to define the same body and just make it look like two different human beings.
Yeah, it's rad.
It really is fucking awesome. Like,
I'm just gonna pick All-Star Superman for my next pick when we get back around.
I might pick that.
Well, yeah, pick it. Let's just go with the good vibes.
It is Sal's pick.
Fuck it. I'll do All-Star Superman. Yeah. I was almost gonna pick the next volume of this because I enjoyed it so much.
All right, All-Star Superman.
But I'll do All-Star Superman. Yeah, fuck yeah.
What say the commenters in the stream?
The commenters.
See if they're down with that. Active comment thread tonight.
Yeah, pretty active. They like the trade talks. I think we should just do trade talks every week. We'll just read one book every week and fuck reading new comics. Let's just read old.
That's not a bad idea.
Old guys read old comics.
Yeah. Which Tom, are you ready to start doing Chris and Tom talk about old comics?
Oh yes, I'm ready. All-Star Superman is available on
Hoopla. Yeah. So I think that we should trade. I think we should go back and forth. Just one issue. It's one issue of an old comic, which we'll say pre-2000, right?
All right. Sounds good.
All right. So do we want to do Sectars number one? Is that our first?
Sectars number one.
All right. So you know where to read it, and we'll
Sectars. We got it. I'm gonna read the whole run. It's gonna be like All-Star Superman, where it's like you can't read just like one issue.
Yes, you can.
You can
read exactly
one issue of Sectars.
This will be fine.
Guys, I'm so excited to read All-Star Superman because All-Star Superman is such a rad series that every time I read it, I'm always like, God, that's so good. It makes me feel it's like, just make Morrison and Quietly just do more stuff.
Yeah, it's like Brubaker and Phillips, Quietly
Just
and Morrison.
get
It
them-
is one of my absolute favorite absolute editions too. It reads so well as an absolute. The just gorgeous oversized
Love
art.
Love it.
So I was
Yep.
trying to come up with a, it's Chris and Tom and comics, and I was trying to come up with something so then you could name your show CTE, because I think that's
Yeah, Brandon. Yeah, definitely some severe brain injuries.
so I don't know. I got to
We
figure out
argue
what
over sectars as we argue over sectars number 1.
Chris Tom energy. I don't know. It's Chris Tom something. I don't.
Let's get Morrison and Quietly to bring back sectars.
Oh, it'd be awesome.
That'd be rad. Be rad.
Yeah. Hey man, it's Bill Matlow and Mark Texiera.
Is it Texiera or Teixeira?
Teixeira is the baseball player. Texiera is the artist.
Yeah, did we ask him that?
Yeah,
I think
we asked him at a
from the
convention.
horse's mouth, right?
Yeah,
Which figures we would ask someone that.
Yeah. Well, how do you say
your
name?
yeah.
How do you say that?
I'm sure after the baseball player, he got sick of it.
I would not be opposed to turning Around Comics into a bi-weekly trade talk. So I don't have to. It is fun. It is fun talking about one book. I like talking about one book.
Yeah.
As opposed to
especially if it's good.
Can we read a
Right?
book? Can we read a book a week? Can we read one trade a week? Is that possible?
You can read a trade.
Could we?
Just don't be like picking before the dark whatever it was.
No, it'd have to be a small
12 issues of 1970s Legion.
No.
So do we All-Star Superman next week? You got a
I
week.
do it. Yeah.
I can talk about All-Star Superman right now. If you want.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Okay.
I think we all could.
Yeah.
Well, we'll discuss that. I don't know. That might be as opposed to, I know we've been talking about like weekly comics for years, but
Yeah.
this
week sucked.
Yeah.
There was nothing.
There was the detective, the Raphael, the new detective with Raphael Albuquerque.
Oh, I'll check that out. Yeah, but
But other than that, it was a rather dire week.
There's almost always like 2 or 3 books where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm enjoying reading that. This week it was nothing. And I tried a couple things and they were just, I'm not even going to talk about them. It was a bad week.
Yeah.
Yes, Greg Porter, we know it's quietly. Quietly. I always say quietly, but
Quietly.
I'm aware. It's like quite frankly. It's
Quite frankly, Frank Quietly.
It's not his real fucking name, so if I mispronounce it,
That was some
I could talk about All-Star Superman in 2 weeks. I would have no problem. I'm going to read it this weekend. There's not an excuse to read it.
I don't know. We might want to. Maybe it's time for a format change.
No,
we've been doing this for a long time.
My Morrison and Quietly signed, man.
Oh, that just depreciated the value of that book.
I know it's no longer mint condition.
So proud of you.
There's very few comics people that I would ever be that interested in actually talking to that I haven't talked to, aside from Grant Morrison would be probably the exception to that, like talking to somebody.
I'm sure a drunk ass Chris talking to Grant Morrison was probably a sight to behold.
Oh, no, I never. That didn't happen. I was pretty in pretty good shape whenever I talked to Quietly. That was at Morrison Con. And Quietly was there, and Morrison, obviously. Yeah.
Oh, you mean Backstabber Con?
Huh? Oh, shut up.
Benedict Arnold Con? Is that the one you're talking about? Oh yeah, I remember.
Trader
that.
Con.
Trader Con?
Trader Con.
Good job with that. Glad you got a book signed out of that.
Treason
Hope you're
Con.
happy. Treason Con.
Damn. Yeah, sorry, Ron. Jeez.
I'm just joking.
All right, so I think we all agree that we can read All-Star Superman. We're gonna do all 12 issues.
Hell yeah, why not? Fuck it.
All right. So that I don't. It's
you have to at least get to issue 9, right? Like that's the best.
Yeah. I think we need to read the whole thing.
a-
It's I think that they broke it into 2 trades. It's volume 1 and 2. So
The Hoopla collections 1 through 12.
okay,
Yeah.
we're reading all 12 issues. All right, cool.
Yep.
We're gonna do ACTV this week, right? And we might have a guest appearance by one Mr. Tom Caters.
I'll show up. What time's it gonna be at? 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
We can do 8.
All right.
Yeah, we can do 8.
All right. It works for me.
Have you guys seen The Gray Man on Netflix?
Not yet. I keep wanting to watch it, but I have not found time.
Yeah, it's like a perfect action movie. It's exactly what you want if you're looking for just an awesome.
Have you guys watched the Bear?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Hallelujah.
yeah. We've
about
been creaming over that show for the last couple weeks.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we can talk about more though for sure because it's an excellent show.
Yeah, there's
Chris,
actually some.
Have you watched The Old Man yet?
No.
Oh, it's so good.
All right.
It's so good.
I may start that tonight.
It's like an elevated spy story.
Okay.
It's really good.
Chris, did you finish Doom Patrol?
I finished the 2nd season. I'm 2 episodes into season 3. So
all right, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna try and finish season 3 of Doom Patrol.
Okay.
By Sunday.
Ooh. Okay. I've got a lot of stuff to watch then.
I don't know if I'm making a brisket this weekend, so I don't know if I'm gonna have time, but you know.
Well, you have 12 hours while the fucking thing cooks for you to watch.
There was a lot of episodes in season 2 of Doom Patrol that made me teary-eyed. They figured it out. I was like, oh my god, this is like designed. There's certain fictional works that I think are designed to make like dads cry.
Well, I think there's also something genetic or like hormonal that happens when you become a father, because I mean, before I was a father, I don't know that there was probably 3 times in my life that I cried.
Oh, now it's like
I mean, after becoming a father, it's just like I bawl at everything. It's so I don't know if it's just getting older, like estrogen levels, get higher, but I think there's something that happens hormonally when you become a dad. Forget it. If there's anything that's involving a daughter, because I have a daughter too, and it's like,
how many times did you put her in a bucket and put her down a well? I mean, is that a thing?
I mean, metaphorically. You ask her, bucket. I'm sure there's many a time, but
it's like the bucket. There's all these moments where it's like my wife, she's like, what are you, she finds Doom Patrol creepy.
Yeah,
like it freaks her out. It is creepy.
It is
and
creepy.
She's like, why are you like crying? And it's like, it's about fathers.
My family makes fun of me now because I'm the biggest crier in the fucking family. Like,
oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I don't even watch Disney movies anymore because it's just like, forget it.
Oh yeah, what was I watching the other? My kids are really into. They've discovered like live action Disney like TV shows.
Jungle Book? Oh
no, not like Jungle Book's too intense. They love the cartoon. They don't like the live action one. It's like a little, like the live action ones, I find are a little scary. Like they're like a little more intense, right? Like the cartoons, Yeah, the cartoons, it's like even the scariest things aren't that scary, like it's a cartoon. So,
I think
and
there's
my-
actually with those, there's also like a bit of like the uncanny valley effect.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you know that those creatures aren't real, but they look so fucking real
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
weird. I remember when I first put that movie on at home on my TV, my dog could not stop staring at Bagheera. Anytime Bagheera
Yeah.
was on the Zeus would just fucking watch it.
That's awesome.
It was weird. I mean, it was odd. Like he would just watch the thing pace it back and forth across the screen.
Yeah.
Which is there's something
Well,
weird about it.
we saw the Aladdin musical in New York on Broadway, which was rad, and the kids loved it. So they wanted to see the movie, and so we watched the animated version. Then we tried to watch the live action version, and they just were not
Good for them.
having
You
it.
raised them well, Tom.
Yeah,
You raised
they're
them
like,
well.
they're like, what is happening? It's like the cave is too scary. It's like, yeah, I agree with you. The balance of this movie is off. Where like it's just like, you've
Nice.
made it perhaps too intense. Like, ease up a touch.
Have some
So
fun,
they-
Disney. Have a little
they
fun with
found-
things, Disney.
Yeah, where they're into like the live action, like, all the musical stuff, like the High School Musical, and like Zombies, which is like this trilogy of like these musical. They're goofy, like they're so cheaply made, like that's when I was joking about like it doesn't surprise me that the CGI in Disney movies don't always look finished, because I've seen so many Disney productions now where I'm like, this thing could not be made any cheaper.
Right.
Like where it's like, we have a school gym in a field and every scene is going to happen in these two places. Like, I mean, bravo to the scrappy production teams who've done that. But I'm like watching these movies and there's like a slightly touching scene and I'm like starting to feel myself get teary-eyed, and I'm like, this movie is stupid. This is
terrible. Why am I?
It's a terrible movie, and I'm being emotionally affected by this scene between like these werewolves and zombies like learning to get along with each other. That's not meant to be emotional. It's not. It's like it's like,
are you going through menopause, Tom?
I'm just like, like
This
everything falling
menopausal.
The world falling apart has left me in like a very vulnerable emotional state. Yeah.
Absolutely vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's gonna be okay, Tom. The world's gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. It'll be okay. We're gonna be fine. We'll figure
All
it out.
right. So we've got All-Star Superman.
Oh wait, I had. Well, I mean, we can close. I wanted two things I wanted to bring up as long as we're talking about this stuff.
Let's do it.
One was because we're talking TV, a shout out to the production and the set design crews of What We Do in the Shadows. Like, I love that show so much, but goddamn, and I said it on Twitter. It's like, it's easy to praise the writing and the acting on that show.
Yeah.
But bravo to the fucking set artists. Like, some of those sets are so great and just amazingly, spooky and cheesy and campy and awesome, and they just keep adding shit to the.
They're doing something special this season. It is.
Yeah.
It's this might be the jump the shark season, because I think they're going all in on whatever you want to call it.
All I know is Matt Berry is an American treasure. I know he's British, but I'm claiming him. And I know it doesn't really mean much to be an American treasure these days, but I'm fucking claiming Matt Berry as an American treasure. That guy,
He's great.
This is so good for him. I mean, this show, he's so perfect. He's so fucking perfect. And I mean, I laugh out loud at the silliest little lines that he throws out, and just some of the facial expressions he makes. Just end of story. Just some of the shit he does.
Oh, I think every one of the characters could be the main character in the show. That's just how strong it is. I mean, they're all. any of them could be the centerpiece of the show, but they're allowed to all have their own moments. It's brilliant. I'm
number
not
two.
watched this week's episode.
Oh, it's good. It's it's so good. Number two, did either of you see somebody posted a clip online of it was Steven Spielberg at the Actors Studio being interviewed by what's his name? I can't think of the guy's name. He died, but he was always the guy that
Inside the Actors Studio.
Inside the Actors Studio.
Yeah,
I can't think of his name.
James Lipton.
Yes, James Lipton.
Yeah.
Thank you. He's interviewing
Spielberg. Beard.
Yeah. He's interviewing Spielberg, and he asks him a question, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but it was basically like, your mother was a musician, your father was a computer scientist. If they were in Close Encounters, how would they communicate? And Spielberg all of a sudden has this moment of realization that he wrote Close Encounters, and that the scientists were his father and the aliens were his mother.
Huh.
And he didn't realize that until James Lipton asked him that question. And he's like, thank you. That's an excellent question. I did not know that until you just asked me that. I never realized that that's what I did, but you're right. And he has this like epiphany on this fucking stage.
Cool.
It was poetic. It was like this beautiful thing of a writer sort of, and someone seeing that in his work and like going, yeah, that's right. That's what it was. I didn't know it when I wrote it, but that's what it was. It was my mother and father communicating in that movie. And it's like, holy fuck, that was amazing. Like, talk about give James Lipton some credit. I know he has a bit of a cartoonish personality, is the way he speaks and the way he looks, but fucking A, that dude loved movies and just was as good an interviewer, I think, as anybody, even though some people sort of like shit on him for some of the questions he asked. But that guy loved movies and movie making and acting and all those things. So, but I just thought that was really a fucking cool like thing to see Spielberg sort of like have that moment of realization of his own work from years ago. You know what I mean? Like that's pretty cool.
Nice. Well, speaking of TV stuff, mentioned Tom will be dropping by ACTV. That usually comes out on Mondays. We may talk. I'm done with The Boys. I have one last episode, so I'll have The Boys. You can listen to all that by being a patron. You can find out about that at patreon.com/aroundcomics. You can email the show at info@aroundcomics.com. We're here every Thursday, 8 o'clock Central Standard Time ish. You can be part of the comment thread and all that. So I want to thank Greg and Neil and Julie and a few others there for hanging out tonight.
Neil and Julie are one person. Neil and Julie Johnson. That's one person.
Yep.
I don't
know if it was Neil or Julie.
I don't know.
No.
Is it Neil or is it Julie or is it one? Is that
Johnson? One
person, Neil and Julie?
I have no idea.
You
guys have anything else?
No.
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. K-Billy Super Sounds. 2 weeks. We'll do
2 weeks.
Wait. Well, we're doing ACTV this Sunday with Tom.
Oh right, shit. We're gonna have to let Tom or let Will know.
Will know.
I think this was supposed to be the weekend we were gonna do.
Oh well, I don't want. I can.
Tom, do you want to join us for K-Billy Super Sounds? Can you watch The Hateful Eight between now and Sunday and talk about it?
Yeah, I can try.
Okay, we'll do. Okay, K-Billy Super Sounds. It is.
Yeah, we've never had Tom and K-Billy.
Yeah, it'll be fun. You'll have to do a 4-person grid.
I am Greg Porter. I am going to cry thinking about James Lipton and Steven Spielberg. I may tear up.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you. That just won the night. All right, so Tom will join us for K-Billy Super Sounds. It means I'm going to have to rewatch Hateful Eight here in the next couple days.
What, really? You? Oh, that's why you were putting it off. You hadn't watched it.
I'm okay watching it. That's
Interesting.
fine. I've seen it before. I just need to do my...
Should we do a live view? Should we do a live view before Sunday? When are you guys going to watch it? Saturday night, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning?
You probably Sunday morning.
Probably Sunday.
Should we do try and do a live view of it?
You want to work out the kinks before Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Well, yeah, I'd like to. We could try a live.
I'd be fine with that. I'd give it a shot.
All right, we'll work on the details off camera,
Okay.
but
All right.
yeah, maybe we could do a live view Sunday. Yeah, that could be fun.
Yeah.
Live
I'm down
watch
with that.
party. You'd have to be a Patreon member to get it, the live watch view, but that could be kind of interesting.
Yeah. Just
We
live
could
viewing
just
here.
do it right in here. I could literally play it. We could watch it on this, I could play it in here and we could watch it together and comment as we're watching.
You can do that.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
An experiment.
It would be, yeah.
All
Something
right.
different.
Look for details coming soon. All right.
We could do that for superhero movies in the future, right? Like go back to our
Ooh.
classic, watch some truly fantastic superhero movies.
Yeah.
Only
I'm-
the worst
I'm
of the
okay.
worst.
I want to watch the 1990s Flash movie with you, or the Flash TV series.
Oh, the Flash
No,
TV series.
Don't go back and watch it. Don't
The
go back and watch
90s?
it. Yeah.
Oh, I loved it so much back then, but yeah.
Don't rewatch it.
I do love that they brought that guy back to be very
Yeah.
sad.
Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah.
It's a great callback.
And with Jay Garrett. All right, so all that and more to look forward to. We'll be back next Thursday for the regular show. In the meantime,
In between time.
we'll be everywhere in
Hand around
comic
comics.
books with doughy looking people.
Hey, who are you talking to? I'm not that doughy. I
was talking about Superman. He
I'm
looks
pretty
doughy,
I'm pretty doughy.
Thick.
I wish I was that doughy.
right?
Superman's thick.